Well, hello and welcome to the Movie Paradise. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár, and this is Movie Night Tonight. Every single week here, we watch a new film and we discuss it in depth, with each month having a new theme. We're currently in the month of March, which is our month of war films, and the movie we are talking about tonight is 1998's Saving Private Ryan. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár. I'm joined by a great panel today. With me is Rob Giachinta.
Hello!
And Cole Sylvester.
How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, before we start this discussion, and it is a spoiler discussion, we're talking about Saving Private Ryan as if you watched it with us. So, before we get into our discussion, let's go around real quick and say how many times we've seen the film and what our first impressions of the movie are, starting with Rob.
This was my first time watching Saving Private Ryan, and I thought this was one of the best war movies I've ever seen. I think from the action set pieces to the acting from the actors, I thought it was an overall work of art from Steven Spielberg, and something that I'm glad I saw from him, because, you know, I at least to you, I kind of give him crap sometimes, as I don't think he's as great as everybody says he is, but this is something where I can definitely, like, you can't deny the guy's a master at making movies.
Yeah.
After watching this, I think.
Cole.
I've seen the movie easily over 20 times.
Big guy over
It's
there.
like 40 hours.
It's a hands down probably.
No, it would be 60 hours.
Yeah, probably something like that. That's not even counting all the times I've just like watched like certain scenes of it, like the Omaha scene or anything like that. But no, this is one of my all time favorite movies ever. It's phenomenal, and I can't. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is my first time seeing Saving Private Ryan, and I really like this movie a lot. I didn't like it personally as much as the last movie we watched in our month of war movies, Apocalypse Now, but I thought this movie was really, really good, and I thought they did such a great job in bringing to life World War II and putting you like smack in the middle of the action and the war, and you just felt like you were there. It has really great characters. It has really good performances. Overall, it was just very well made, and full kudos to Steven Spielberg. He absolutely deserved his Best Director win, because this is, to direct this movie and make this come together and work, that's a Herculean
Was this
task.
his first win?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Great.
You know, it's crazy to think that this movie didn't actually win Best Picture in 1998. I forget what movie did win it. It was like some romance.
Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It's fun. This actually wasn't the only war movie nominated for Best Picture that year. The other movie was The Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
Which, another movie I haven't seen. I mean, I can't speak to what should have won Best Picture, because I don't think I've seen the other four movies. But, I mean,
Yeah.
this was definitely awesome. So.
Yeah. No, it's for me, it's just like it's hands down my favorite war movie, and the only other one even coming close to it is Hacksaw Ridge,
Which is well, usually I say at the end of the episode, but Hacksaw Ridge is the movie we're watching next week on this show.
Okay.
Ooh.
So, when this movie opens up with a giant set piece action scene, and I thought it was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, because, like I said, it really puts you right there in the middle of all of it. It doesn't hold back at all. It was funny because right before the movie started, Rob, you were saying, "Oh, this is PG-13, right?"
I was joking.
And the first, no, you weren't.
You say it was?
You were very serious.
I knew this was rated R. That's like one of the most famous scenes.
You said, "Is it PG-13?" I said, "No, it's rated R." And you're like, "Oh, I didn't know."
I was being an ass.
Okay.
There's a shock.
But it puts you right in the middle of the moment, and you feel like you were there, and it gives you such a real sense of what it is like to be there, and you just feel that sense of despair, that all this carnage is going on, all this madness, and you can feel how tangible it is, that feeling of despair that what can you do except die? And there were some really great camera techniques that they used. There was a lot of handheld camera use that I thought did a really good job of making it feel even more personal. It didn't feel like a stylized movie for those scenes. It felt like you were just right there with
Kind of felt like you were a soldier almost, like
Yeah.
running, like where the hell am I going to go?
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought that was such a great way to capture the moment.
Yeah, and one thing is World War II veterans who actually watched the movie, who were actually there in real life on Omaha Beach, they actually said that that movie, Saving Private Ryan, is the most authentic war movie that they've ever seen. Some of them even had to walk out in the theater when they were watching the opening scene because it brought back PTSD moments for them, and they said they have never seen a movie that's even come close to capturing what they went through.
What about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I mean, I've
It was a good one.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor.
I've never watched it.
Then why the fuck would you say?
That's the
It's
next
Michael
movie
Mann.
we're watching.
Oh,
movie?
really?
No,
Oh.
it's not. But what was interesting when we watched and discussed Apocalypse Now, and I know neither of you have seen Apocalypse Now, but one of the big takeaways that I had from that movie was the grand scale recreation of war. And that they went to the Philippines and literally recreated Vietnam and and there was no CGI used. You know, it was all real practical explosions and everything. They even had real dead bodies and stuff like that. Like they're like the stuff that they went through to recreate Vietnam. And Coppola famously said about the film, he said, "My movie isn't about Vietnam. It is Vietnam." And it shows, and I think you see that also with Saving Private Ryan. The grand scale recreation. That opening scene where you just have it, the size of it and the scale of it is massive. The amount of ships, all the soldiers, the explosions, the weaponry, everything. It's on a massive, giant scale. And maybe there was some... I mean, it's 98, so there's probably a little bit of CGI. But it all looked and felt real. Yeah. It felt like you were there. And that was so effective in communicating to us, the audience, what it's like to put there. So I am not shocked at all when you say that there were veterans who watched that and it gave them PTSD and flashbacks to what it was like to be in the war, because you just felt right there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, just with the CGI, with the lack of CGI, if this movie is heavy on like effects, I feel like it might not work like nowadays or hold up. Yeah. But it totally holds up. I didn't see a single shot that I was like, that looks bad.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think when we have movies that come out today, specifically even war films that rely heavily on CGI, it doesn't feel as real as movies like this where they go out and recreate it for real.
I'm trying to think of one that does, because like I would say Dunkirk would probably hold up. That's mostly all practical effects, and same with Hacksaw Ridge too. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there's some out there that
make something like a Dunkirk. Yeah. And if you're not Christopher Nolan, the studio would make you use CGI. Yeah. And so and I think that's why, even though I'm not personally a fan of Dunkirk, that's why Dunkirk was so revered, and that's why people loved it so much, because it felt so authentic, because they did it for real. And I think that is something we see consistently with war films, is that when you do it for real, and you're not relying on effects or trickery, and you just recreate the war, it feels real.
It seems like all like the like kind of revered filmmakers of the past and maybe the present now like have all made their own like signature war movie. Like you have a Coppola who made Apocalypse Now, Spielberg who made this one, and now Christopher Nolan made Dunkirk. It's an interest. I think war
Kubrick
movie,
with Full Metal Jacket, which we're watching later on in the month.
I mean, there's tons of them, and it really like. The star of this movie, in my opinion, isn't Tom Hanks or Matt. It's Steven Spielberg, in my opinion, with what he's able to do with this movie.
And, as someone who has had a minimal amount of experience being on set and directing things, to look at something like this, a movie of this size, to think of how do you go about directing this?
That's what
how do you make this happen? Like, it is mind-boggling to me that creating this and making this happen,
all the extras you have to hire, all like the set designs, like, and like the scenes like that, I could just imagine, like, how would you you can only probably get some of these scenes in like one take. When
Yeah.
you're gonna set all this back up again, like
Yeah.
you have to do everything perfectly
Yeah.
to make a good movie.
And the rapid fire editing.
Yeah.
Like, you just have shot after shot after shot after shot.
And it's 3 hours, so
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not
exactly.
just like a short movie that they're putting.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like 3 hours.
No, I will say that. I mean, there are definitely some maybe parts of the movie that drag a little bit, but I was never like bored during watching it.
I thought it transitioned from like all the different battles very well. Like I mean, like you said, like some parts it did drag, but for the most part, it was kind of like nonstop for the action. I mean, there were very few moments where they actually stopped for a long period of time, just to talk to each other and whatnot.
Yeah.
Most of it was actually them fighting.
Well, and that's just the nature of war. Is you don't have a ton of downtime.
Yeah,
you're going from one place to the next, and I think it captures that really well.
Yeah,
I love the overall message to the movie, in that you have these soldiers going after one guy, Private Ryan, and they're trying to save him. Evident from the title of the film.
Yeah.
So they're going after Ryan, and we have constantly throughout the film soldiers questioning, why are we going through all this for one guy?
Yeah.
Why is it worth one guy when we're dying? And I love this ultimate message of the movie, is that one life is worth it. One life is worth the effort.
Especially just because that was that lady's last son. I think that's why it was worth it. Like I think that lady didn't deserve to have all her children die in war.
Yeah. And that moment when they actually meet Private Ryan, played by Matt Damon, and they're saying, like, we lost 2 of our guys to get to you, and he doesn't feel like he's earned it or that he's worth it. And then we cut to the very end of the movie, revealing the old guy from the beginning was Private Ryan. And for him, I forget exactly word for word what he says to his wife, but he says something to the effect of, have I lived a good enough life to earn the fact that people died so that I could live? And that's a really powerful message, and that's a really powerful idea. That he's alive because other people died for him so that he could live. Yeah. And has he lived his life to the fullest? Has he lived his life, lived up to that potential that people died for him to have? And I thought I really liked that. I appreciated that about this film.
It was interesting. You guys said like your favorite battle scene was the first one, the opening. Because I would say honestly, the one that I was most taken away with was the last one. To be honest with you,
last one was great.
The last one was excellent.
It captured my attention like the entire time. Like because I was like, because you're thinking to yourself like, we followed all these characters throughout the whole movie. Now are they all gonna die or which ones are gonna live? And like just there's a lot of great like the scene on the stairwell too, where you have. I will say that one character, Upham, I don't know if I like necessarily I understand that like he wasn't experienced to this, but like I just part of me really wanted him to just like man up at the end and like climb up those stairs and like defeat that Nazi.
I would have liked that. Like to see that too.
But it was cool like that when he walked by, like he noticed that was the one that he let go, and then at the end he shot him for good that time.
Yeah. I think the reason I love the ending battle sequence and everything, I think that's fantastic. I think the reason why I'm more drawn to the first one is just because that's the opener of the movie.
Yeah.
That's like aside from the beginning tag where you have the old man going to the cemetery, that aside, this is the opening of the movie. It just throws you right in and you're just swept up in the moment. And I think the kind of the shock value of it and the fact suddenly you're just thrown into the moment, you have all this blood and gore and carnage everywhere and explosions and gunfire and all these noises and all these visuals and everything that you can't even really process exactly what's going on. It so perfectly puts you in the place and the position and the mindset of a soldier. And I think once we get to the end, that ending battle is great. It's staged excellently, it's shot beautifully, it's so well done, but it doesn't necessarily have that novelty that the beginning has.
Yeah, and it's not in the beginning. It's not like a short scene either.
No, it goes on.
It's a long battle scene.
Yeah,
I mean, so
part about that first one I liked a lot too was like when they're all in the boats and you can just tell like on their faces by them like puking and like their hands twitching that they know like shit's about to go down.
They
and
know. They know a lot of them are going to die.
And then most of them do die.
Yeah.
The boat gets there.
Yeah.
The gate goes down, and then immediately most of them are shot dead.
They're just like mowed down.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a very graphic movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
And it needs to be graphic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you could do this movie any other way because there are places for a PG-13 war movie somewhere. But for a movie like this where the point of it is how graphic it is, the point of it is the violence and the brutality of war, you need the blood and you need the gore or else it doesn't have that impact. You need to see what the soldiers are seeing. You need to see those soldiers who have like blown to bits and missing arms and missing legs and screaming out in agony, and because that's what the soldiers themselves are seeing.
Yeah, it's really trying to put you in the shoes of these soldiers.
Exactly.
And what they're going through.
I think when we did our discussion of Apocalypse Now last week, one of the things we were talking about was that war movies is really a way, is a form for people who do not go to war and never will go to war to see what war is like. And I think you see that in Apocalypse Now, and you see that definitely with here. Because there are going to be, most of the people who watch Saving Private Ryan have never been in a battlefield, will never go to war, are not soldiers. And this is them watching what it is like to actually be there. Yeah. And the fact that you have veterans who see this movie and are affected with PTSD upon watching it, I think it would be a disservice if they didn't have that. Meaning that if the movie was so fictionalized or toned down or done in a way that it wasn't real and it wasn't genuine, then it's doing a disservice to those soldiers, because the point of this movie is for us to see what soldiers went through.
Yeah, and I think and I love that about war movies, how it's, a lot of them, how it's really showing you, you know, what they went through. Because, I mean, in everyday life, you know, most of us probably aren't thinking about the wars that went on. But, I mean, you know, to see what these people went through for our country, I thought is, you know, really an amazing thing to see on the big screen. I mean, these guys went through, like, absolute hell. And a lot of them died and lost their lives.
I loved when they were talking about what their lives were like before the war.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everyone was drafted for this, so you had a lot of people who never intended on being part of the war, suddenly thrown into the war, and especially having someone like Tom Hanks's character talking about how he was a school teacher, and how much he hates to kill, and how much it hurts him to kill. And I thought that was, it reminds you that these aren't just, like, these aren't super trained people who have been in the military all their lives and dedicated their lives to this. They were school teachers. They were average people who just suddenly, war broke out because of the Nazi movement rising in Europe, and suddenly they had to go and fight. They were never intending to. They were never expecting this as their life, and suddenly they're thrown into this, and most of them died.
Yep.
And this is how they died.
Yep. Nope, exactly.
And I think we need movies to reaffirm that, and to show us that, and to remind us of that.
Yeah.
I like how they showed out, like, none of these men, even though they necessarily didn't want to go to war, they were always going to stick up for their brothers in war, though. Like, especially with Matt Damon saying, like, no, I'm not leaving these guys here. Like, we're all going to fight here together. I'm not just getting out of here. And I thought that was a really great part of the movie.
Yeah, just seeing, like, their determination to, you know, get their job done.
Yeah, and fight for their country. Yeah,
fight for their country and do what they needed to do to get back home.
Exactly.
Yeah. And World War II is, you know, probably one of the most brutal, actually it could be the most brutal war that has ever occurred in the world. And, you know, that's why I love World War II movies, getting to see what these people went through.
Yeah.
Even movies like, you know, Hacksaw Ridge, where it shows whether in Japan and that side of the war is very interesting to see too.
Yeah. No, there's so many different World War II movies, because I think when you look at the world, World War II changed the world.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we have the world, and then we refer to it as post-war. Like, the World War II so dramatically changed how the world operates, and specifically different countries like Germany and like Japan and like the United States. And it was such a monumental thing in our recent history that there's a reason why we have so many World War II movies and so many different kinds of World War II movies. Like we have Hacksaw Ridge, which looks at one character's specific journey through World War II. We have Holocaust movies looking at Holocaust survivors and Holocaust victims and concentration camps. There's so many different kinds of World War II movies because
Darkest Hour is a good one.
Yeah.
That's like a kind of a
political strategy movie. Yeah.
And then Dunkirk, I mean, the Americans aren't even in Dunkirk.
No.
You know, it focuses on the British and the French, so, well, mainly the British, but also the French and them trying to escape from Germany.
Yeah.
So, and that's, you know, I think it's excellent.
I've heard people say that we don't need any more World War II movies. We've had enough. They've kind of overdone it at this point. We need to be done with them. And I'm curious to know what you guys think on that. But I would say that I would disagree with that. Because I think when we stop making movies about stuff and we stop talking about things, it fades into memory. And if we aren't constantly reaffirming something and making sure that future generations know something that happened to us, history fades away and people forget history, and then it never even was. And I think making World War II movies is important because people need to know what happened during World War II. People need to know why we fought, what we were fighting for, or else, as the famous saying goes, history repeats itself. And so I'm curious to know if you guys share that sentiment.
No, I think they should, as long as they think of new stories to put around, like something like Saving Private Ryan. It's a World War II movie, but it's an original movie. This didn't actually happen. I know some people might. I think some people actually do think this was a real movie, but whatever. But as long as they're thinking of different angles and different stories and different like ways to approach World War II and other war movies, keep giving them to me because I eat them up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I think they should continue to make World War II movies because I mean, you know, it's called World War II for a reason. It involved the entire world. Every country, pretty much every country in the world was involved somehow. And you know, most World War II movies that are out there are mainly focused on the Americans and what we did. Well,
because they're Hollywood produced films, so they would be about.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, just look at all the other countries that were involved, and you know, I would like to get to see like their stories. A little more in the future.
There's didn't Clint Eastwood make one from the Japanese perspective, like Letters from Iwo Jima, which he made that movie, and he also made the other movie. I can't remember the name it was. There's essentially the USA versus Japan, but each movie was from one movie was from Japan's perspective, and one movie was from the USA's perspective, and I thought that was pretty cool.
When you go into foreign cinema, you have a lot of movies from other countries dealing with World War II and how their own respective countries dealt with war. There's even, if you look at film history, you have post-war cinema because World War II was so big that it forever affected film history because movies stopped being made once World War II happened.
Oh, yeah.
And so then when you come back, when soldiers come back, and you have society is supposed to just resume after so many people died, after there was so much hatred and evil in the world, and society is supposed to just resume. That's why we have post-war cinema. It just forever changed everything.
A scene that I found really kind of emotional in a way was that one scene where Giovanni Ribisi's character is shot down and they're all trying to bring him like resuscitate him, and he's like spewing out blood, and he's like the medic, so none of them really know how to like care, and he's trying to like tell them how to care for her, and then he slowly just gives up, and he's blood's all over the place, and that was a scene where I thought it was pretty brutal to watch, to be honest with you.
And when Vin Diesel dies, too.
That one, too.
Because he was trying to save the kids.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do the right thing, and he died.
Yep.
And I think that was
And they had to watch him die, too, because they couldn't go out there to try to grab him because that Nazi was there with a gun.
Yeah.
That must be terrible, like, sitting there watching you, like, buddy, just bleeding out, dying, and you can't do anything about it, or else you're gonna get shot, and now you create more problems for the rest of your guys. And
Yeah.
so it was a cool scene to see, and again, it just shows the horrors that they went through.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought they did a good job casting all the actors. There's a lot of actors that I think have gone on to become even more famous than they were now, like Giovanni Ribisi and Vin Diesel.
Bryan Cranston.
I didn't know he was even in the movie. Ted Danson, all sorts of
a
small
lot of
characters
those guys were not
that
famous when they were in that movie.
Believe it or not, the main star of Battlefield Earth was in this movie too, Barry Pepper.
Oh. I do think, I don't know if you guys felt it, but for me, the movie did drag at parts.
Mainly in the middle, I would say.
Yeah, I think the middle did kind of drag.
In parts. But there was also parts like the scene I just mentioned, which I was like captivated in the scene with Vin Diesel. But there's also some scenes where they're just walking around, and I'm just like, all right, let's get to the good stuff. But I think that happens with any war movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It got slow for me, like, right after that scene where, Paul Giamatti's character breaks down that wall, and they all get mowed down.
Oh,
after there, it kind of got slow for a little bit, up until the point where,
I would agree.
the medic got killed, and then it picked up again, and it was pretty fast.
Yeah.
After that, but
this movie's this funny comedy. Lots of...
That scene with Paul Giamatti was hysterical.
Yeah.
I thought, whoa!
And I don't even think that scene was intended to be like funny. I think it's just because it's Paul Giamatti doing it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
like
made
anytime
it
he
funny.
like speaks, like I just want to laugh for whatever reason.
God, because he kind of sounds like an idiot. Another thing I wanted to add about how when you're saying the movie dragged at some parts. This movie is like almost 3 hours long, and I fucking despise long movies. Like I
agree.
despise them. I can't stand them. They irritate me. But in this one, like I didn't feel like I was sitting there watching it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
The movie went by very fast for me, and even after seeing it as many times as I've seen it, it still has I still don't get bored by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't see any parts that I would say, oh, that can be cut out necessarily. I think everything served its purpose. Like there's plenty of movies like we've mentioned, like Aquaman, all these other, or another one we talked about on movie night tonight, Straight Outta Compton, where I could say these scenes could be pulled out, blah blah blah. And in this, I think you can't really take anything out without it losing its emotional impact.
Yeah. So, as we bring this discussion to a close, let's go around real quick and say what our final thoughts on the movie are, starting with Rob.
Final thoughts is, this is definitely a movie I want to pick up on Blu-ray now so I can watch it again one day. I think it looked gorgeous for how old it's as old as us. 1998. And it looks like it was made today for the most part. And it's filled with great acting and, like, one of the best directing jobs I've ever seen in a movie, I think. Yeah. And it's just a captivating war film about the horrors of war and what it does to men and what men would do to fight for our country back in the day.
Cool.
Are we scoring? Or
you can if you'd like.
Go 4.2 out of 5.
Nice.
I agree a lot with what Rob said.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just an excellent movie. For me, the movie is pretty much flawless.
I thought you hated it.
Oh, fuck you. That
was your least favorite movie of all time.
Like I said earlier, it's definitely one of my favorite movies of all time, and I recommend you see it. I easily give this a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Go check it out in theaters this weekend.
Yeah.
So my final thoughts on Saving Private Ryan is that I thought this was a really good movie. I agree with you, the directing job on this was incredible. The large-scale recreation of all these scenes and sequences, how they were just with specific camera choices and editing, put you right in the moment of it. The sound design also is incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if I'll have to look that up after for one. Best sound design.
I would not
definitely
be shocked.
should.
Yeah. I thought all the performances were really good. For the most part, I really liked all the characters. And while it did kind of have some parts where it dragged, like we were saying, it never felt like it was a full 3-hour movie. It flowed very well for a movie being that long. I really like this movie a lot. I'd give it a 4.2 as well.
Copying me.
Yeah. Well, that has been our discussion of Saving Private Ryan. Next week, and we already talked about this a little bit, but next week we are going to be watching and discussing Hacksaw Ridge, the 2016 film. That is one of my favorites. That was my favorite movie of the year that it came out.
Hey, I'm proud of you.
I love that movie. So make sure to watch Hacksaw Ridge and then tune in for our discussion of it next Saturday. All episodes of Movie Night Tonight drop on Saturday, so be on the lookout for that. You can check out our social medias at Movie Night TNT. That's Movie Night TNT. And there you can, through our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there you can get the links to all of our previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Once again, I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár. Thank you to my panel for being here. Rob Giachinta, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
And Cole Sylvester, thanks for being here. So until next week when we watch and discuss Hacksaw Ridge, thanks for listening.